Victory or annihilation, there was no middle ground. The countdown was nearing its end. Delia Kane stood at the command center, her eyes locked on the holographic map as the second Dreadnought blast moved toward Earth. Every second felt like an eternity, and every pulse of energy from the Dreadnought felt like it was inching them closer to the precipice of total destruction. The Council's fleets, battered but still operational, had regrouped, but it was clear, they were too late. Earth had been pushed to the edge and the Dreadnought wasn't slowing down. "Commander Rook, we're running out of time," Delia said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her mind was racing. There had to be something she could do. If we don't act now, the blast will reach Earth within the next hour. And even if we stop it, there's no telling what the Dreadnought's next move will be. Rook's expression was one of grim determination, his face drawn tight. "We've been playing defense this whole time. We need to go on the offensive, Delia. If we don't neutralize that ship, the next attack could wipe us out. We have no choice but to attack it directly." Delia clenched her fists, the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. Earth had no choice but to fight, but how could she justify starting a full-scale war against the galaxy's most powerful factions? How could she face humanity's survival on the line while the Council pressed their demands for Earth to surrender its most powerful weapon? Her communicator buzzed urgently. It was a direct line to the Galactic Council. "Delia Kane," Zoratha's voice crackled through, cold and full of finality. "You have made your choice. The Dreadnought will continue its course unless Earth submits to our demands. You have one last chance to end this peacefully. Surrender the Dreadnought, or we will bring an end to your planet's existence." Delia felt her breath catch in her throat. The ultimatum was clear and the consequences even clearer. The Council had already mobilized everything they had, and Earth's position was growing more and more hopeless by the second. There was no room for negotiation anymore. The Council had decided, they would wipe Earth off the map if they had to. Delia's hand hovered over the console, and for a moment she thought of all the lives on Earth, the ones who had trusted her, who had placed their faith in her to protect them. They were counting on her to make the right call. But how could she decide what was right when every option led to a dead end? "We're running out of time," Rook repeated, his voice strained. "If we don't strike first, the Dreadnought's next blast will hit Earth." Delia's mind raced. The Council had no idea what they were dealing with. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a symbol of Earth's strength, its unwillingness to bow to any force in the galaxy. The Dreadnought was more than a machine, it was a statement. And if she let the Council take it from them, humanity would forever be seen as weak, insignificant. "Get me a direct line to Zorath," Delia said, her voice cutting through the tension. "It's time we have this out once and for all." Within moments, Zoratha's image flickered to life in front of her. The insectoid leader stood tall, his expression cold and calculating. "Delia Kane," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "You've had your chance. Now Earth's fate rests in your hands. You will either surrender the Dreadnought or face the consequences." Delia squared her shoulders, her mind made up. There was no turning back now. "You think you've won, Zorath? But you don't understand Earth. You never have. The Dreadnought is not just a weapon. It's our legacy. And I will never allow you to take that from us." Zoratha's many eyes narrowed, his antennae twitching. "You are playing with fire, Delia. The Council will not be swayed. We will destroy your planet before we let you defy us any longer." "I won't let that happen," Delia said, her voice steady. "You want Earth to surrender? Then you'll have to destroy us all." For a moment, Zorath was silent, his cold gaze unblinking. Then, without warning, the holographic projection of the Dreadnought flashed on the screen behind him, its weapon systems powering up once again. Delia's heart skipped a beat as the energy readings spiked. "This is your last warning, Earth," Zorath said, his voice like ice. "You will comply or we will finish what we've started." Delia swallowed hard. There was only one option left. Then it's war. The transmission cut off, leaving Delia in the quiet aftermath of the decision. The fate of Earth was sealed. But as she watched the approaching Dreadnought, she realized something chilling. The Council was no longer their greatest threat. The Dreadnought had fired, again. And now, Earth's final stand had begun. The Dreadnought's blast was just the beginning. The real war had only just begun. The blinding flash of energy from the Dreadnought's cannon lit up the Lorelei system like a second sun, sending shockwaves that reverberated across the galaxy. The pulse of destruction hit the Council's fleet with an overwhelming force. Ships that had once been invincible now struggled, their hulls buckling under the sheer intensity of the blast. Delia Kane watched in stunned silence as the Dreadnought's attack ripped through the heart of the Council's might, tearing apart what was once thought to be an impenetrable fortress. The devastation was immediate, but it wasn't the end. The Dreadnought's next move was already in motion. Its engines roared to life and its weapon systems powered up again, ready for the next strike. The Council's response was swift, but there was one undeniable truth: this wasn't a fight they had prepared for. They had underestimated Earth. And now Earth's ancient weapon was showing no mercy. Delia's comms lit up with urgent messages, each one a plea for help, each one more desperate than the last. The Council's fleets were reeling. Ships had been crippled, entire fleets decimated in a single blow. Yet in the chaos there was one message that stood out. Zoratha's voice, cold and commanding, came through with chilling finality. Prepare for our final strike. Earth has sealed its fate. Delia's heart pounded in her chest. The Council was mobilizing everything it had left. Every fleet, every resource, all aimed at Earth. This was no longer a diplomatic issue. This was a war for survival. Admiral Rook, Delia said, her voice steady despite the rising panic. We need to act now. We have to stop the Dreadnought before they launch another attack. Rook's face was grim. He knew the odds better than anyone. We don't have much time. We can't rely on our fleets alone. They're already overwhelmed. If we don't find a way to disrupt the Dreadnought systems, we'll be wiped out. Delia turned to the engineers working frantically at their consoles, trying to decipher the Dreadnought systems. It had been designed to be impenetrable. The ancient technology was both advanced and foreign, a relic of a time long past. They had no manual, no instructions, no blueprint. All they had were fragments of old Earth military strategies and outdated specs. We need to infiltrate its core systems, Delia said as the weight of the situation pressed down on her. We need to find a way to deactivate its weapons. But just as the words left her mouth, the station's alarms blared again. A fresh burst of energy surged through the comms. The Dreadnought had fired once more, directly toward Earth's homeworld. They've launched another blast, Rook said, his voice tight with urgency. It's aimed at Earth. We don't have the time to waste on strategy. We need to stop it now. Delia felt a chill run down her spine. Earth's survival was in the balance. If the Dreadnought struck Earth, there would be no recovery. No defense. Only destruction. As the countdown to the Dreadnought's next strike began, Delia felt the finality of their options. The Council's fleets were on the move, but the truth was clear. Earth was alone in this fight. There was no turning back now. The fate of the galaxy hinged on a single moment. And Delia Kane realized with a sense of grim clarity that the final strike could come at any second. The countdown was almost over. Would Earth survive? Or was the galaxy about to witness its end? It was no longer just a weapon, it was a force of nature. The Dreadnought's arrival in the Loralis system sent ripples of panic through the Galactic Council's fleets. Its massive form emerged from the black void, its dark hull gleaming under the cold light of distant stars. Each passing second only intensified the tension. Its weapon systems activated, lighting up the void with an energy signature that none of the Council's fleets had ever encountered. This wasn't just a threat, it was a reckoning. Delia Kane stood before the Council's emergency communications terminal, her heart racing. The Council's ultimatum had been clear: stand down or face the consequences. And now the time for diplomacy was slipping away. With each passing moment, the possibility of an all-out war loomed ever larger. The Dreadnought was nearing the Loralis system's core, its weapons capable of decimating entire fleets in seconds. Earth's weapon was no longer just a bargaining chip, it was a harbinger of destruction. Alert the fleets, Kane said, her voice steady but strained. We need to prepare for whatever comes next. Admiral Rook stood by her side, his gaze fixed on the holographic map displaying the approaching Dreadnought. If they open fire, we're done. No fleet in the galaxy could survive that kind of firepower. Then we stop them before they have the chance to fire, Kane said, her voice firm. We need to act first. We need leverage. But just as she finished speaking, the entire room shuddered. The massive shockwave of the Dreadnought's engines reverberated through the station, and alarms blared to life. A message from the Dreadnought appeared on the console, its cryptic words flashing across the screen. *, we are not here to negotiate. Prepare for extinction. *. The words hit harder than any weapon could. Delia's chest tightened. There was no turning back now. The Dreadnought had initiated a countdown, a prelude to what could only be described as an annihilation protocol. With its massive engines powering up, the Dreadnought was preparing to fire upon the Council's core, its aim unyielding. Deploy every fleet we have. Rook barked, his calm facade cracking for the first time. We need to stop them before it's too late. The entire room sprang into motion. Across the galaxy, the Council's forces scrambled, activating every ship in their arsenal. It was an unprecedented mobilization. Fleets from every corner of the galaxy, converging on the Lorelei system, desperate to intercept the Dreadnought. But the clock was ticking. The countdown continued, and the Dreadnought's trajectory remained unshaken. Each second stretched like an eternity as the vast war machine crept closer to its target. Delia's mind raced. There had to be another way. Was this an act of rebellion, or was Earth simply caught in the crossfire of its own creation? What had triggered the Dreadnought's awakening? Was there a hidden agenda? Every theory that raced through her mind seemed more terrifying than the last. But before she could voice another thought, the holographic map flickered. A new message flashed on the screen. This time the words were simple, direct. You're already too late. The shockwave hit with a force that rattled the very foundation of the station. The Dreadnought's main cannon fired, its energy blast streaking across the stars toward the heart of the Council's fleet. And as Delia stared in horror at the flashing screen, she realized the impossible had happened. The Dreadnought had already fired, and the galaxy was about to witness Earth's power in all its devastating glory. The first shot had been fired, and the fate of the galaxy was now in the balance. Every choice felt like a step toward oblivion. The moment the Dreadnought's cryptic message blazed across the Council's comms, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. It was more than just a weapon in motion, it was an omen. Earth's ancient Dreadnought, a sleeping giant, had stirred from its slumber and no one knew why. Worse yet, the trajectory it now followed could not be ignored. The Galactic Council's nerve center, the Lorelei system, was directly in its path. Earth had made no moves to explain itself, no words of peace or diplomacy. And with every passing second, the growing tension in the room only deepened. Delia Kane, Earth's ambassador to the galaxy, stood at the heart of the Council's decision-making chamber, her fingers tense around the edges of the console in front of her. Her thoughts raced. How had they come to this? What were Earth's options now? It felt as though the entire galaxy had become a giant chessboard, each piece carefully placed, each move crucial. She turned to the holographic map in front of her. The Dreadnought was moving fast, its systems fully operational and its course unyielding. The message from the vessel, "We are coming," had been accompanied by a sequence of numbers that, when decoded, revealed coordinates to the Lorelei system, the seat of the Council's power. "I'm telling you, we can't just wait," Kane said, her voice strained. "We need to send a message to the Dreadnought. Let them know we're trying to avoid conflict." "That's not enough," said Admiral Rook, the grizzled human officer who had once commanded Earth's most elite fleet. He was pacing nervously, his hands clasped behind his back. "We don't even know what the Dreadnought wants. It's not like we can simply ask it to turn around. And what's worse, we don't have the firepower to stop it. Not without risking an all-out war." Kane's mind spun. There were too many unknowns. Earth hadn't been prepared for this. No one had. She glanced at the comms console, noting the glowing alert that indicated an incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. It was from Zorith, the Grand Speaker. The insectoid leader of the Council had never been one for pleasantries, and his cold demeanor made every conversation feel like a trial. "Delia Kane," Zoritha's voice crackled over the comms. "The situation is clear. Earth's relic, this so-called Dreadnought, has not only threatened our fleets, but it has also reached a critical location. You will comply with the Council's decision. There is no room for negotiation." Delia's heart skipped a beat. "What do you want us to do, Zorith? The Dreadnought is an unknown. We don't even know if Earth has control over it. And if we attack, we risk escalating this conflict beyond repair. Your planet has one choice," Zorith continued, his voice colder now, almost mocking. "Cease the advance of your Dreadnought or face the consequences. There is no middle ground." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Kane standing in a room full of anxious faces. She knew what was coming. The Council would make their move. Their fleets would position themselves around Earth, waiting for the Dreadnought to make the first aggressive move. Earth could either comply or face a full-scale galactic war. Rook's voice brought her back to reality. "You need to choose, Delia. The Council won't wait forever." She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her. If she made the wrong choice, billions could die. If she stood by Earth, she could provoke the Council into launching an all-out attack. But if she surrendered the Dreadnought, if she allowed the Council to strip Earth of its most powerful weapon, then humanity's bargaining chip would be gone forever. The Council would see them as weak, as an insignificant species, no longer worthy of respect. We can't back down, Kane said, her voice firm. We need to protect Earth's sovereignty at all costs. I'll send a message back to the Council. We'll comply with the ceasefire, but we won't stand down. The Dreadnought is a symbol of Earth's strength. It's the only thing keeping us from becoming a target. But what if the Council doesn't listen? Rook asked, his tone heavy with doubt. What if they don't care about your diplomatic efforts? Delia looked back at the map. The Dreadnought was closing in on the Lauralee system with terrifying speed. And she knew, deep down, that no amount of diplomacy could stop what was coming. The Council had already made up their mind. The only question now was how far they were willing to go to preserve their power. Before she could answer, the alarm on the comms console blared to life. The message was short but to the point. It was a threat from Zorth himself. Asterisk, your Dreadnought will be neutralized. Prepare for our fleets to engage. You have 10 hours to comply. Failure to do so will result in immediate military action. Asterisk. Delia's pulse quickened. The countdown had begun. We don't have 10 hours, she muttered, turning to Rook. We need to act now. We either convince the Council to negotiate or prepare for the worst. Rook gave her a grim look. And if the worst comes, Delia? What then? Delia's eyes darkened. Then we fight. As the transmission ended, Delia could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her shoulders. In the cold vastness of space, with billions of lives hanging in the balance, there was no room for error. The next few hours would determine the fate of not just Earth but the entire galaxy. The countdown had begun. And soon the first shot would be fired. In the cold vastness of space, nothing is as dangerous as an unknown enemy. The moment the transmission came in, the Galactic Council fell silent. Their typically calm, calculated demeanor had shattered, replaced by a palpable sense of unease. The Dreadnought, Earth's long-forgotten weapon, was not just a relic. It was a potential extinction event. And no one had any idea why it had suddenly come to life. For the first time in centuries, the Council's most powerful members were not united in purpose. They were divided, uncertain. The chamber was bathed in cold, blue light as the various species took their seats around the massive, circular table. At the head sat Grand Speaker Zorth, a towering insectoid being whose species ruled a vast swath of the galaxy. His many eyes narrowed, focused on the holographic projection of Earth's ancient weapon slowly moving toward the Council's heart. It had been decades since Earth had been anything but a minor, inconsequential player in galactic politics. Now, that perception was about to change. Is it active? The words came from Talrith, a humanoid diplomat from the Veshura species, known for their hyperintelligence and cold rationality. Yes, Delia Kane, Earth's envoy, answered with surprising calm, though the weight of the situation pressed heavily upon her. It's alive, moving at a steady pace toward the Lauralee system. Its systems are fully engaged. We suspect it's operating under some kind of protocol from the ancient war era of Earth's history. It's a warship, pure and simple. A murmur ran through the Council. To them, humanity had always been a secondary concern. Primitive, erratic, and largely irrelevant. But this was different. The Dreadnought was an unimaginable threat. A weapon forged by a civilization long dead but still capable of devastating everything in its path. It could be a bluff, Zorth said, his many legs tapping the floor in agitation. A show of force to claim dominance over the galaxy. Or it could be something far worse, Kane countered, her voice steady but her thoughts racing. The weapon wasn't designed to negotiate. It was designed to annihilate. The Council fell into a tense silence, as leaders of various races turned inward, calculating their options. The Zardians, a race of traitors with vast networks of spies, spoke first. We must take immediate action. The Dreadnought is headed for our core systems. We cannot let this threat reach our territories. Agreed, said Vashtor, a leader from the Friender species, his tone heavy with authority. But we also must consider Earth's motivations. The diplomat has said they are unaware of why it is awake now. Perhaps it is an accident. A glitch. Delia could feel the weight of their eyes on her, the skepticism, the doubts. I assure you this isn't a glitch, she said, looking Vashtor directly in the eye. The Dreadnought was never meant to be dormant. It's been lying in wait. And now, it's moving as though it has a mission, perhaps one that no one, not even Earth's leaders, understands. Zortha's antennae twitched, an unmistakable sign of agitation. And what does Earth expect from us in this situation, Kane? Do you expect us to wait until you figure out what this weapon wants? To risk the fate of our entire galaxy on the whim of a species that can't even control its own ancient technology? Delia's gaze sharpened. I don't expect you to sit idly by. But I do expect you to act with reason, not fear. You must understand that Earth has no intention of provoking war. This weapon, it isn't just a threat to the Council, it's a threat to humanity itself. We don't have the resources to destroy it, nor the knowledge to control it. Zoratha's voice rang out, cold and commanding. Then Earth must be prepared to deal with the consequences. If this is some sort of trap, we will have no choice but to neutralize the threat. Delia's stomach tightened. She had been sent to broker peace, not to prepare for war, but she could feel the tides turning in the room. The Council's members were already starting to mobilize. Some were more calculated, seeking to monitor the Dreadnought's path from a distance. Others, like the Veshera, were already discussing strategies for a preemptive strike. Before the tension could escalate further, the hologram flickered. The Dreadnought's signal, a beacon that had been steady up until now, suddenly flared. It had shifted course, directly toward the Loralee system, a nexus of power where the Council's most vital fleets were stationed. And there was something else. Something more troubling. The message was cryptic, but it was clear enough. We are coming. The room erupted into chaos. What does that mean? Shouted one of the Drellians, their sharp features contorted with alarm. Are they targeting us directly? No, Kane said, her voice cutting through the noise. It's not aimed at you, it's aimed at the heart of the Council. A deadly silence followed. All eyes were now fixed on Kane. Prepare for the worst, Zorath said, his voice colder than before. We'll deploy our fleets. We will not wait for Earth to make its move. And with that, the galaxy's fragile peace teetered on the brink of war. It had been silent for centuries. Until now. The silence of Earth's orbit had become as commonplace as the stars themselves, a constant hum of space's unfeeling, frozen quiet. No one on the Galactic Council, none of the countless alien species that had long deemed humanity a mere afterthought, had given a second thought to the ancient relic orbiting Earth. They had forgotten, dismissed, or never even considered the dormant dreadnought that lay hidden beneath the dust of time. Until now. The old war machine, forgotten by all but a few historians, powered up with a low, terrifying hum. Its once dead systems flickered to life with an eerie, mechanical growl, as if it had been waiting for this very moment. The ancient vessel's sensors sparked to life, detecting an incoming transmission from Earth. For the first time in millennia, its weapon systems hummed with the promise of lethal power. The human high command scrambled, catching wind of the disturbance within the deep recesses of their orbit. There had been rumors, stories whispered among a few elders of Earth's military elite, that such relics still existed, hidden, guarded, and often forgotten. But no one had thought the Dreadnought would awaken now. Commander Alan Rook, a hardened officer with decades of service, stood in the observation room, staring at the growing hologram of the Dreadnought. His face was drawn tight, a mixture of awe and anxiety reflecting in his eyes. It's moving, he whispered under his breath, almost to himself. But, why now? The vessel, now fully activated, began its slow, deliberate course. It wasn't just a relic, it was a force of destruction, a remnant of Earth's ancient war-making prowess. Few remembered the last time it had been used, fewer still knew how to control it. But it was clear, the machine was no mere relic, it was a message. In the council chambers, the news rippled through the room with an unsettling speed. The members, a collection of alien species who had for millennia ruled the stars, felt a tremor of unease pulse through their collective. Not since the last great war had anything threatened their established order. The human diplomat, Delia Kane, was the first to stand in front of the intergalactic summit, her voice steady despite the terror that threatened to break through her professional demeanor. Earth has something, she said, eyes narrowing. A weapon, an ancient one, and it's reactivated. We don't know why or what its purpose is. But it's clear, Earth is no longer a passive player. The council members murmured among themselves. The whispers of the past, of ancient human weaponry, began to resurface. But this was something different, something far worse. The Dreadnought's path was clear, headed for the council's most strategic system, a nexus of power. A place they'd protected for centuries, fearing nothing until now. The unspoken truth lingered in the air, thick with tension. For the first time, the Galactic Council feared a species they had long disregarded. And Earth hadn't even made its first move yet. The clock was ticking.